Welcome to the Healing Place podcast, a space filled with inspirational stories of hope, along with practical advice for your healing journey. Your host is Teri Wellbrock, trauma warrior, writer, speaker, blogger, therapy dog handler, and founder of the Sammy's Bundles of Hope project. As a survivor and a thriver, Teri's mission is to shine the light of hope into the world by interviewing insightful guests from across the globe. Please stay tuned at the end of today's interview as we honor our sponsors. The Healing Place podcast is a fiscally sponsored project of Fractured Atlas. Now, here's your host and trauma warrior, Teri Wellbrock.
Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I am your host, Teri Wellbrock, and very excited to have with me today Christine Marie. And she is, oh my gosh, energy healer, author, poet, photographer, artist. So I'm excited to do some share screens for those who are going to watch the video. If you're listening on the audio version of this, pop on over to YouTube and check out the video if you want to see any of the shares that we do on here. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Absolutely. Well, I asked you right before we hit record if you'd be willing to read one of your poems to us. And so at the end, you're going to do so. And yeah, I'm just thrilled that the audience is going to, as I read through them, I had received a sampling and oh my gosh, there were just so many as a trauma survivor that just spoke to my heart and soul. So beautiful.
I just got chills throughout my entire body as you said that. That's exactly what I want the reader to experience when they read the book.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's just, I think in sharing our truths, there's just such a soul connection that happens. And we don't feel so all alone.
Yes.
One of the poems that I had read talked about, and I'm just way paraphrasing because your words are much more beautiful than what I'm about to say, but along the line, the tear-stained pillows, that's not what love is. And I mean, how many times as a little girl, I'd fall asleep with I used to call it the marching soldiers in my head because from the tears, it was like, choom, choom. It was my heartbeat in my head trying to not sob. And so, I get it. And that spoke to me.
That's so lovely. Yeah, that's like a vivid memory I come back to quite often when I think about, healing and like the trauma that I've gone through, because that was such like when I would wake up and I would see the stains on the pillowcase, I would see like the actual like physical chaos that I was trying to release from my body, and it's so powerful and it's so heavy too when you're in such a raw and vulnerable and loathing state.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So talk to the audience about what it is you do.
Yeah. So I consider myself as a creative healer. So I am a vessel from the divine that speaks about, painful life experiences and also how I've healed through those painful life experiences. And I do that through art, and I do it through poetry, especially. And it's been just one of the most biggest blessings I've ever uncovered about myself as just a human being, of how I'm able to alchemize the pain into wisdom, not only for myself, but for other people. Because I go back and I think about what I wonder what would have happened if I had read, the words that I wrote back when I was like in the situation of like being in an abusive relationship or being, abandoned as a little girl. Like, you just wonder what that would have done for me and how healing and insightful that could have been. So I want to, like, while people are in their most suffering states, I want this body of work breaking free to allow themselves to not be so ashamed of what they're experiencing, and hopefully also find a way out of their own suffering.
Yes, beautiful. Well, and it's so true when you just resonate with something that it shines a light on the situation again, to say I'm not alone in these feelings, and what a gift that is to people to know that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's so important that we allow ourselves to feel the emotions of the feeling that we're having. Because I think so often we don't want to cry, or we feel ashamed of crying or being angry or upset, and then we suppress that. And then by suppressing that, that turns into physical or mental illness
Yeah.
in our bodies. We're holding on to something. And I just think, like, as human beings, we have to find a sacred space to allow ourselves to release and feel those emotions. And not only is crying beautiful and like going for a walk is beautiful, but writing it out physically, like writing the literal toxicity out of your body, is just therapy for me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's so fascinating. Yesterday, for whatever reason, I decided, oh my gosh, we had moved in June, 5 states away. So I finally was like, all right, let's just open a box. I have 3 left to unpack. And I was like, let's get these last 3, because I knew these 3 had a lot of stuff in it. And so I came across a list of poems that I had written, probably about 40, that are on a completely different hard drive. Like, I have the hard drive somewhere in a box, but and so I can't get to them because it was before the days of now where you could download it onto, wherever and save it on flash drives. I mean, this was like floppy disk days. But just reading the titles alone, I thought, oh, I love it that I was writing about it. And yeah, it was cathartic.
Yeah, yeah, and what a way to measure your growth too, you know? It's like when I finished the manuscript of Breaking Free. I mean, I'd been working on it for a couple of years, and I finished it about a year ago, and I opened it up and I was reading these words and I was just like, I don't even identify with this woman anymore. And how freeing is that?
Yeah.
Right? And to like be able to see that, and to really make sense of it all, and to see how much you've grown and blossomed, and just healed from those experiences that, like, at one point I wanted to honestly like die from.
Yeah.
So, it's so transformational what the power of words can do for the human person.
Oh, yes, for sure. Yes, absolutely. And congratulations on, yeah, finding this beautiful gift, not only for yourself, but to give it to others and offer it to the world is just, yeah, amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned you're an artist, so it's not just through your writing artistry, but your photography. And again, when I was on your website, oh my gosh, your pictures from India and Nepal, the way you
Mm.
capture people. I call myself an amateur photographer. I have like a little Nikon camera that I'd gotten as a gift, and we live on Hilton Head Island, and so I try to catch pictures of alligators and birds and all of that. But there's something about capturing people, in the way you capture these people. It's almost like their essence, and just incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much. I Those were like some of my most favorite photos I've ever taken, because it allowed me to see a part of myself in their eyes.
Yeah.
I'm such an empathetic person, and you walk by like an alleyway and you see a man holding like his mala beads, like with like a bucket of popcorn spilling over him, and he's just like sleeping at 11 a.m. and that's just like what he's doing. And I'm able to really feel like the emotional part of what he's experiencing, and I almost feel like we've connected, and I
Yeah.
haven't even spoken a word to him. And capturing that like just reminds me of how different our human experiences are, but how similar we all are with what we go through, and like the pain and the suffering too. Like, we are all one. We just have different, experiences in life that we learn from and grow from. And I just think it's so beautiful to find yourself in the eyes of a stranger.
Yes, from across the world. I think that
Exactly.
this podcast has brought me in contact with just healers from all over the globe, and to know that
Mm,
the same feelings and experiences and growth and trauma and learning are happening in Thailand or happening in New Zealand or happening in Canada or in the States, wherever it is. And it's, you're right, there is just to find that connection in another, in a stranger, no matter where they are.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like that's what's so important to talk about, because we feel so alone in our experience, and then that aloneness makes us feel like we don't belong. And that
Yeah.
like that lack of belonging makes us not want to be here or not want to continue on with life, at least in, I'm speaking for a personal experience. And so when we find that we have similar experiences with our traumas and these terrible things that we go through, the fact that we are not alone, the fact that somebody across the world goes through some sort of suffering too, that makes us feel like a sense of belonging, which makes us feel empowered to share our stories and our vulnerabilities with each other in order to help each other go through
Yeah.
these, difficult times.
Yeah, for sure. Do you mind if I pull up and share just a few of your pictures?
No, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, just so, I mean, again, just so beautiful.
Mm,
Um, as I scroll through, like this, the one I tried to point to it, like people would see my finger with this one right here. I mean, that
mm,
sweet little face and just being silly and fun. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I love, yeah,
Is this the picture you were talking about? The
mhm,
Yes.
mhm,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. So there's the popcorn,
uh-huh,
and he's
yeah,
asleep. Yeah. There was one along here. This one down here
mm,
with those boys bathing.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Again,
Oh,
is it taking
it's,
you back?
it is, it is. It was 2 years ago this time I was there,
Okay.
and yeah, it was just such a magical experience. And I went on like a self-discovery journey. I quit my job and I said, I need to go discover who I am. And I took a pilgrimage first to India and then Nepal, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. And I just had my backpack on my back, and it was the most liberating experience of my entire life. And I really felt like I found a sense of self. And that journey was what gave me the clarity of continuing on to write Breaking Free. Um, and my second book will be about my pilgrimage to India precisely. So, and I'm hoping to have my photography in it as well. So, you
Yes.
know, yeah.
Beautiful. And this is now these are these from India? Is that what I clicked on first?
Yes.
Okay. And then you
Yeah.
had Nepal as well, which and that was all, was that the same trip?
Yeah. Yep. So I did Nepal right after India.
Okay. Again.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, just simply beautiful. And it is funny how you're
Mm.
drawn to certain things. For whatever reason, I was drawn to this lady holding the little, is that a goat?
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's so funny. We all are, we all resonate with different,
Yeah,
colors and lifestyles, and it's so beautiful.
it is. Oh my gosh, simply gorgeous. All right, well, let me
Mm,
hit stop
thank
share
you.
on this and we'll come back to our conversation. Yeah, so um gosh, I don't even know where to go. There's so many awesome things to talk about. Well, one of the things that I had mentioned was on your website, I saw that you had written, I think under the book section, the only way out of darkness is through it. And those who are listening know I have said this so many times here on the show and talked about it with so many guests. So yeah, let's dive into that just a little bit.
Yeah, that was inspired by me constantly running away from myself. And whether that would be through travel, through alcohol, through any sort of external escapism, so I didn't have to go within and face the pain and the trauma and my shadows. Um, but by running away further from myself, more disconnected I felt from myself and from the world. And that's what I believe led me to like this really dark rock bottom that I hit. And I had two choices when I hit this, dark night of the soul. I could choose to ignore it and continue living a life, that was not in alignment or fulfilling for myself, or I could choose to embrace it and go within and really heal from the inside out. And I knew if I were to live, go the first route, that I wouldn't be living today.
Right.
So I had to take the bravery and the courage to really go within and find out what was underneath all of the layers that I've been trying to, mask all of the hurt and pain that I endured as a little girl. So, yeah, and it was the best decision I've ever made. It's why I'm alive today.
Yeah. And now you teach others. Do you work with others, work with women particularly who have been through abusive relationships or are currently in one?
Yeah, I do teach. I teach other people about my experience, and I'm trying to this year really cultivate more of like a supportive, I wouldn't say like a hotline, but kind of like I want to draw in people, especially women that are abuse survivors, and to really help them through their experience. So I'm going to try my best in a way to create a community of that, because I think it's so important when we're going through something that can be so disheartening and take like the light from within you. And I never thought I would be able to come to a place where I could actually openly talk about it, because it was so raw for so long. But the reason why I'm at a place where I can talk about it is because I healed a lot of it, and I'm able to really, really share it in a vulnerable way so other people can just find a sense of what's the word? Just find a sense of liberation within their own journeys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And now, did you do the majority of your healing through writing, through your art?
That was most of it. And I also go to psychotherapy. I do hypnotherapy. I do energy work. Yeah, I do, balancing with the chakras, and I do a lot of inner child work too. I'm kind of like a healing junkie. I just think it's the more that I do it, the more, honestly, the more healing I do within myself, the more love I feel within, and the more love I give to other people. And it's just this beautiful cycle. And I know when I'm not taking care of myself, I can't help anybody else.
Right.
So it's so important.
I laughed and smiled so big because I so related to what you're saying. I'm that person when I learn of something new, I just absorb it like, oh, teach me, teach me, teach me. And I have this huge toolbox that I call it, this healing toolbox. And again, I say it often, but Ho'oponopono Hawaiian healing and EFT. As a matter of fact, I have an EFT tapping session with someone, an energy
Yeah.
healer today at 4. And I mean, I did EMDR therapy for 4 years, and I've done energy healing and crystal work, and I've done Reiki, and I've done, you name it. I have, because one, I want to see if it resonates with me. But two, I want to be able to talk about it. I want to be able to bring it, onto the show and say, hey, yes, I've tried it. I've lived it. I did acupuncture for the first time. I was
Oh,
terrified of being stuck with a needle. And
it's
so
awesome though,
it's
huh?
awesome.
I love
Oh
it.
my gosh, I can't wait to go back. Like, I got home and was like, what was I afraid of? That was amazing. And I was
Yeah,
telling my oldest son, I said, John, I said, oh my gosh, I did acupuncture. It was so cool. If you ever get a chance, he's like, Mom, I've already done it. And I was like, oh man, why didn't you tell me? It was great.
yes. And I think it's so great that there's so many different modalities and recipes out there to bring healing and homeostasis back to our mind, body, and souls. It's so lovely. And I love that you call it the toolbox. I call it my medicine bag.
Oh, I love that too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that we can reach in and say, oh, this isn't working today. But you know what? This is working. This is what I need today.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. So how do people connect with you? How do they work with you, find you?
Yeah. So my website is christinemarieheals.com. From there, you can click on the link to order my book, which is through Amazon. So that's how you can order Breaking Free. And then also through my website, you can follow underneath the offerings page. You can see my energy healing work. And I'm currently almost graduating shamanism training. So next year or next month, I'll be a certified shamanic practitioner. So I'll use shamanism, Reiki, and my own intuitive gifts as a way of bringing healing to the client. So you can sign up through there and just email me if you're interested in booking a session. And also my Instagram is Christine Marie Heals, and that's where I put a lot of, just my poetry. I call it kind of like a visual diary, like my poetry, my photography. I write a lot about like my travels and just my life experiences on that. So
wonderful.
yeah.
All right. Well, I love it that people can, get in touch with you. And oh my gosh, yes, if you need to read this poetry because it's just so beautiful. We still have a few minutes to talk before I have you read a poem for us. So, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we close out?
I honestly think the most important thing I want people to know is to not be so afraid to go within themselves. I find that we live in a society where we've become um, afraid of pain and afraid of discomfort and like ashamed of those feelings. And I think it's actually where the medicine lies. It's where the wisdom lies. It's like you have to go through the dark in order to find the light. Like I don't usually press my beliefs on people, but I've never seen something and experienced something more true in my life. Um, so I just really want to encourage other people to not be so afraid of themselves, because underneath these narratives that we've collected through our traumas and our conditionings as human beings, underneath that layer is just a divine, beautiful light that you can never ever imagine that lies within. And I just really believe that there's just a sense of worthiness and belonging and love that's just waiting for you to embody. And it's underneath all of this stuff that we've attached our identities to that don't even belong to us. um, so I just think that's so important. And don't be afraid to shine, and don't be afraid to take up space, and just express your truth and live your truth, because it's the most healing thing you can do for yourself and for other people.
Yes, amen. And beautiful. And
Mm.
yes, as someone who avoided for 25 years, I lived with severe panic attacks because I was just
Mm.
avoiding that darkness and avoiding, and it was so terrifying to even think about going back into that darkness that I wasn't able to realize the light that was there,
Mm.
and or is on the other side, really. And and to be able to finally, I don't know, like beat my way down into it or just work my way through that darkness. And I got to that beautiful space of healing and light.
Mm.
And oh my gosh, it just changed everything. And so that's the message of really my story and so many people's stories is in the show, is that and I so lost it, went out of my head. I got so excited it went away. Is that, you just, even if you've been through trauma, I came back. Even if you've been through trauma, you can still live this life filled with joy and tranquility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And you are not defined by your traumas,
right.
Like I used to walk around this world with this, literally I would meet somebody and I would think in my mind that they would look at me like I was a broken person. And it wasn't really how they saw me, but it was the way I saw myself. And that's why it's so important, by the way that we look at ourselves and see ourselves and the things that we're telling ourselves, like that makes such a difference in our day-to-day lives. So yeah, like
Yeah.
there's so much more to you than what you've been through.
Right. Well, and it's that energy you emit. If you are identifying with the darkness, it's hard to radiate that light out into the world.
Absolutely.
So yeah, awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, so would you read us one of your poems?
Yeah. You know, I thought I was going to read the first one, but I'm being called after our conversation to change.
Okay.
So I'm actually going to read the last one, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a long one, but it's one of my favorites.
Oh, I'm excited to hear it. Thank you.
It was not so much about leaving you, more than it was about finding who I was meant to be, who I could be, without your gust of wind weighing down my wings, plucking apart my feathers from the very same back you pinned against brick walls and basement floors. It was only when I surrendered to the army of colors, both around and inside of me, when these rested eyes began to notice how bright the ethereal sun shines through the black and blue pores your fingertips once painted over. And it is only when I found beauty in the way the colors of my spine harmonized along the colors in the sky that my spirit soared higher than it ever did, bound by the person who held down these wings. I am finally free.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful visual.
Mm,
Heartbreaking, but beautiful at the same time.
mm,
Yeah.
thank you.
I see hawks everywhere. And so I just had
Mm,
this visual of the hawks here on the island soaring over the water. And yeah,
mm. Oh,
thank
I
you.
love that. Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
sharing.
receiving.
Absolutely. All right. Well, again, I just what a blessing it is to have you here with me today. And thank you for sharing your light with everyone.
Thank you so much for having this platform for me to shine, you know, and yeah, I really do feel like such a beautiful connection with you, and I'm just so happy that we connected, and I can't wait to support your journey in this because it's so powerful and so needed.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, again, what a blessing it is to have, beautiful souls like you to come across my radar and to connect
Mm,
and yeah, to just offer a light to those who need it. Yeah. So again, thanks.
mm, thank you.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks.
Mm.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening today to the Healing Place podcast with your host and trauma warrior, Teri Wellbrock. If you enjoyed this episode and want to learn more about Teri, her mission, and the Hope for Healing journey, visit Teri's website at www.teriwellbrock.com. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing, and offering your reviews on our YouTube channel, audio outlets, and Facebook page. And as Teri reminds us, until next time, remember, be gentle with yourself.